this pretty wonky but really interesting horror film. This whole film completely turns on a dime of what I thought this was going to be. I did not see the ending coming. I will never look at Soup the same again. Hello everybody, my name is Tasha Wheelhouse with Copper Shock, and today we're going to talk about Cobweb from 2023. So this film starts out as a supernatural, maybe psychological thriller vibe, where this voice in the wall is telling this little boy to do stuff. At first it's harmless, and then you know where this is going. You just know. That's the wild part, is that isn't the twist of this film. When this film just hits rocket fuel is about 2/3 of the way in, when everything just goes wild. Okay, how do I explain this? How about this? Instead of me not spoiling anything, I just spoil it. Cobweb is about a little boy who's experiencing loneliness as this only child of this family that's very much a shut-in. Like, they just don't interact with people around them at all. He is desperate for a friend, and he hears a little girl's voice in the walls of his home. And this voice is telling him how bad his parents are and that he shouldn't trust them, that they've done bad things that they just don't tell him about. He starts listening to that voice to a point where he actually harms his parents by secretly poisoning them. And it's a very graphic scene. Oof. I cannot look at Soup the same. Insert graphic of no soup for you. Anyway, and then there's this locked door that he is warned throughout the entirety of the film by his parents, never, ever open this door. But you kind of want him to at this point, because it's like, we in this now, so what's behind door number 1? And it turns out there's this monstrous person who is actually his sister in the wall, but she's so malformed and treated like a monster that she's developed weird muscles in a supernatural kind of way. Crazy sister apparently killed a kid while trick-or-treating, and that's when the parents decided that this little girl needed to be locked away because she was incredibly dangerous, and they just weren't sure what to do with this demonic child that they had birthed. And then you get to the last 20 minutes of the film and your eyes are just bulging out of your head of, whoa. I was not expecting this. For the first 2/3 of the movie, no violence, no gore. I don't even remember if there was cussing. Nothing. The last 20 minutes of that film was nothing but blood splashing against the lens. It's a graphic movie, if I have not made that abundantly clear. Despite all of that gratuitous gore that happens in this film, I thought it had a really interesting message to it. It's a horror morality tale around gaslighting your children based on family histories that maybe you're not proud of, that you are worried that your children figure out that you're not this perfect mom and dad who will always take care of you. When you exemplify the fear side of that, the way these parents have, in gaslighting their little boy and saying, you don't hear voices in the wall, even though they know they have locked their daughter in the walls of this home for like a decade and a half. There's that fear that we're afraid of our kids and their opinion being colored of us by things in our family's past that we're not proud of. I thought that was a very interesting take. As an original horror story, people are imperfect. Our parents are imperfect. And as we grow up and we find those imperfections, it's about finding a love and acceptance about it. That all said, I did think it was beautifully filmed. There are shots and colors that are in this film that are really rich and romantic even. It's just a beautifully cut together film. The music is gorgeous. It's just lovely to listen to. The casting was awesome. And I think a lot of that lent into the idea of a bait and switch of what kind of movie this was. I had no expectation of what this actually was. I did enjoy it. The only thing I did not enjoy, sadly, is the ending. The last thing you see in a horror film to say, is or is it not? I have a strong suspicion that maybe some studio exec somewhere in a suit was like, horror films are supposed to end like that. You're supposed to end the movie this way. This didn't need to have a cliffhanger because it's completely inconsistent with the rest of the film of how it beautifully builds up setups and payoffs. And then you get the ending button. It's not even just like hanging on a cliff. It's just unsatisfying. It's like everything that was achieved was completely upended, like nothing the characters did actually mattered. And that was hugely disappointing. I am going to give this a thriller factor of solid 8. I really wanted to know the mystery that was unfolding and what it was going to amount to. It definitely finally ended in something I was not expecting. Even if it's a genre of horror that I don't necessarily love as a payoff, it was still worth it. Like, it was still a really good mystery, even if the very, very, very last piece of it was dissatisfying. The rest of the architecture of it, awesome. I wanted to know what happened next. Gore rating. Oh, it is a bloody film. It's so gentle and it's so beautifully crafted for the first, like, most of it, and then all of a sudden it's all red. It's almost like they were making up for it for the rest of the film not having any. The gore rating here is a 10. It's a lot of blood. It's visceral. You see all of it. It's not gentle. Storytelling 1 to 10. I did not expect the way this film progressed and ended, and the story of it all is extremely original. I enjoyed this for the pure fact that this had beautiful storytelling and setup and payoff throughout the entirety of it, and even a twist right before the climax. That's really good storytelling to me. I'll give it a 10. It's hard to get a shock factor out of someone in a horror genre because you feel like most of it's been done. But they took basically 2 subgenres of horror and mashed them together without you expecting it to be there. It started off as a psychological thriller, and it ended as a monster gore fest somehow, but it works. I would say the special effects here are a 9. They took some great detail and care into this, especially on the monster side when it's finally revealed. Monsters can only look as real as a monster could, because it's not actually real. Does that make sense? Like, it was enough to be believable. It was good. The production value. Oh gosh, this is a beautiful movie. The shots are so wonderfully balanced to show the dissonance of the relationship between the boy and his parents begin to increase as the voice starts to talk to him more and more about how his parents are these bad people. The color balance of the film as well has this really sweet and sad coldness to it. I loved the production here. I thought they did a great job. Thank you so much for tuning in to listen this week. I'm going to take this next week to do some research behind the production of Cobweb. Maybe some of the decisions that were made, find some interviews. Again, I found this to be a really awesome film. Maybe not something I'd watch every Halloween. It is so much gore. Even though the ending genre isn't necessarily the kind of horror film that I like super gravitate toward, I thought it did still carry through a really interesting message. And I want to know more about this story, why it exists, where it came from. So I hope you tune in with me next week as I find those pieces of information and I'll share it with you. Okay, I'll see you soon. Bye.